Before we get into this episode, I'd like to give you a quick little update about the American Association of Municipal Executives. For those who have signed up on the waiting list, we are going to be opening the doors here later this week. So stay tuned for an email or text message. I will also include a coupon code so you can get a discount when you sign up. Again, that's only going to be for those who are on the wait list. And then we're going to open up the association publicly next week. So again, if you're on the wait list or if you want to get on the wait list, go to aame.org, go to the bottom of the homepage, click on the waitlist link, or click on the link in the show notes, and stay tuned. Looking forward to seeing you on the inside. All right. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America. With me today is Nathan Reed. He is the city manager in Perry, Oklahoma, and he is a first-time city manager who is really pushing the ball forward on the technological advancement front. He has launched a new product for local governments that I think city managers across the country will be interested in hearing about. It's called CityOrdinanceAI. So we're going to bring him onto the program to talk more about this venture and talk about a city manager experience a little bit. So Nathan, welcome to the program. Why don't you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Thanks, Joe. Well, first, I got to say it's fun to kind of see you do that intro. I've heard it a lot of times listening to your podcast over time, but seeing the behind the scenes was fun.
I do it live every time. It's not recorded. It's not scripted like a lot of ones do. I just always just read it in. So
That was really good. You did a good job. Yeah, so kind of a brief intro. I grew up in Utah, got into the city management profession because I actually went and job shadowed a city manager. And after job shadowing attorneys and engineers, I finally job shadowed a manager, and I was like, "This is it. This is a cool job, something where you can contribute, where you deal with people, but also get to make analytical decisions."
right.
So I ended up getting my MPA at BYU, worked for Spanish Fork and as the assistant too for several years, and then got this chance to be a city manager out in a small town in Perry, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
My wife and I never expected that. It was really something that took us by surprise. And we moved our family out here a year and a half ago and have honestly just loved it. It's been a really awesome growth opportunity. The people are really, really kind hearted out here, and the traffic is amazing. So,
a couple things I wanted to touch on before we get into the nitty gritty. One is I'm really excited to have you on the program because over the last couple of years, I've put out sort of messages on LinkedIn and on the podcast inviting city managers and government officials who are embarking on some sort of pet project or side hustle. It doesn't have to even be a for-profit. It's like if you want to talk about your band or whatever, come on the show. Let's talk about, I want to bring some, dimensions and layers to the city managers and the profession and what have you. And one of the things I've talked about is doing some shows on side hustles and city managers, assistant city managers, directors. What are you working on the side that you might want to, talk about or, plug or promote or whatnot? And so I was scrolling LinkedIn and I saw that you had launched a product for local government in the AI space. And I'm like, hey, I need to get this guy on here. And so before we get into all that, I want to tell everyone who's listening, like, hey, if you are in the government sector and you are working on a side hustle or something that you think you're wanting to share to the public, let me know because I'd love to have you on the show and talk more about it just to promote it. Nathan's on today. We have no financial arrangement. He's not paid to be on the podcast. Do not have any affiliate agreement with him. I earn nothing. I just wanted to showcase one of our peers, and I'm hoping that you guys get some value out of it. But before we get into that, Nathan, this is your first city manager gig in Oklahoma.
yeah.
I think it's okay for me to share this. You said you went to BYU. You were in Spanish Fork, Utah. You're a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. What made you decide to leave the nest of Utah and seek out your first city manager gig in Perry, Oklahoma?
Yeah, such a good question. We were sick of the cold up there. It was, the winters are brutal. Not like you're Minnesota, but Utah
Yeah.
has its own brutal kind of winter, and we were tired of that. So we're looking southward. And then the other big driving factor, Joe, and a lot of cities are dealing with this right now, is housing costs.
Yeah.
As a median household price out in Utah, I think, is over 500,000 right
It's
now.
skyrocketed over the last decade or so with a lot of folks
Yeah.
moving to Utah, right? Yeah.
Yep. And we wanted to buy a home, and we're like, hey, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford anything in Utah. So we moved to Oklahoma, brought a brand new home out here, 4 bedroom, 2 bath for 240,000. We're like, this is great.
Well, I live in Wichita, Kansas,
Yeah.
and I moved from Southern California, which obviously has its very expensive real estate too. And
Those are
and
two
uh, yeah,
dynamics there.
and Kansas and Oklahoma are very close. Every time I look at like housing affordability in the country, Kansas and Oklahoma are two of the most affordable states in the union, and you get a lot of bang for your buck, obviously, in Oklahoma and in Wichita, where I'm at.
Yep.
It's been short little sidebar. My wife, she's working in LA because she works for a tech company, and she started working remotely when we were living in Wichita. So they went to a hybrid, so she had to move out to LA area, and her 700 square foot apartment that she lives in, it's more than the entire cost of our housing, including taxes and insurance in Wichita. We have a 3,000 square foot house, so it's pretty wild to think that we have a house that's 4 times the size, more than 4 times the size, with a yard and everything else, 3-car garage, and we pay less for that house than she pays for a 700 square foot apartment in LA. It's wild.
It is. It's wild. That supply and demand thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so
So you didn't have any family out in Oklahoma, like I didn't have family in Kansas, correct?
that's exactly right. Yeah. Knew zero people out here.
Yeah, that's a big change, and especially I would imagine for your family, because I don't want to turn this into a religious podcast or anything like that, but you're coming from an environment where you're used to having a very large safety net and family and church community. I'm sure you have a church community here in Perry too, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's quite a change to go from having that expansive built-in network of support in all aspects of your life, and to go to some place where you don't know a soul.
Sure. Yeah, it was a big change. I think in some ways it's been nice, to move out and be more independent. In other ways, raising the young kids, it's like, man,
Yeah,
it would be nice to have grandparents to come do this so we can
I
have.
bet it would be. Nothing beats free, brother. Nothing beats free.
Yep.
Because those kids are not cheap. Yeah,
Nope,
yeah.
they're not.
Oh man, yeah. So you've been in Perry now for about a year and a half, and
Mhm.
I took a quick gander at your website. Looks like you've updated it recently. I assume it's been updated since you got there. I think, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
But why don't you talk about what you've kind of done, because you've been there for a year and a half, and I'm pretty sure you've gone through some major changes as you're entering this profession for the first time in this seat as of the level of responsibility. Just talk a little bit more about how the community and the organization has embraced you and what you've been doing in Perry.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. So we've done a lot of work out here since I started. I came from Spanish Fork City, which in my opinion is one of the best run cities in Utah. Just a fantastic administration team. And I felt like I had a lot to offer to a small town who doesn't have that background or talent. And I've just tried to implement a lot of the things I learned there, in terms of economic development and policy changes and helping employees grow. One big issue we ran into pretty early on is that our whole capital projects budget for across all departments was $300,000.
Yeah.
Um,
How well, I don't care how big your city is. That ain't gonna get very far. But how big is Perry?
Perry's 5,000.
Yeah, I mean, even with the city of 5,000, $300,000 doesn't even get you out of the driveway.
Oh,
Jeez.
it was rough. So we actually did a huge rate increase. We did a 70% increase on our water and sewer rates. And it
Ooh, how
was it
how'd that go
was
over?
brutal. I don't ever want to do it again, Joe.
I do not. I got to tell you, Nathan. My recommendation for a first-time city manager is to try to avoid any situation where you're going to be out doing some sort of 70% rate or tax increase in your first 18 months. That's probably not. That's not how you drew it up on the whiteboard, right?
No, it was brutal, but honestly, like it passed after we did a bunch of town hall meetings, and by the end of those town hall meetings, the residents, the majority of them were like, "We have to do this. We realize we have to do this," and we
Yeah,
broke it up over 3 years. So we,
yeah, yeah.
we heard them and made some changes accordingly, and it's really opened up our budget to be able to do the things that council has wanted and the city has needed to do for many, many years, and they've just pushed back and pushed back and pushed
Yeah.
back. We're finally able to do it. So
I didn't mean for the conversation to go off this direction a little bit, but I'm going to do a quick little sidebar, Nathan, because it's a pet peeve of mine, and it's this idea that we want to lower taxes or not raise our utility rates, whether it's the water, sewer, trash, or what have you. And I'm all for limited government. I'm all for, lower taxes and efficient government. But the reality is this, okay? If you are an elected official and you do not want to raise rates or raise taxes, then the only way that works is if you fundamentally believe that there is some sort of excessive waste within the organization, and simultaneously you're willing to make the decisions to cut out that waste or direct the executive, the administration to cut out that waste so that you can make that balance statement balanced. Because if you just go on and on without raising your rates or raising your taxes because you want to be quote unquote fiscally conservative, the piper gets paid. This is something I always try to communicate. I'm sorry for this, a little bit of a rant, Nathan. It's just sort of a sore spot for me. The piper always gets paid. You can pay him now or you can pay him later, but when you pay him later, you're going to be paying more. So it's like, let's not like pussyfoot around and pretend that you want to be quote unquote fiscally conservative when the reality is you're just schlepping the responsibility off onto someone else's back, whether it's a decade later or not. You know what I mean?
yep.
Again, I'm all for lower taxes. I'm all for efficient government, but I'm for true efficient government, not just masquerading as fake, fiscally conservative government. So, we see that a lot in small towns, Nathan. My first two gigs were in small town Kansas, where they had some issues with not really collecting the revenues to justify or cover the infrastructure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like everyone wants infrastructure, everyone wants these services, but if you're not going to actually collect the revenue to pay for it, then where do you think the money's going to come from? It's going to come from the taxpayers down the line, because like I said, you can, and this myth of growing yourself out of bad problems is like, if you can't handle what you have now, the ability to grow yourself out through some sort of economic development, it's not,
Yeah.
it's fool's gold. It's just foolish. And especially if you're in a rural community where you're not even in a metroplex, like what some employers are going to magically show up and save the day. I don't know. Sorry for the rant there. And I'm not trying to suggest anything like that in Perry. I'm just going off my own little riff here, Nathan, because I just see time and time again when I read these news stories every week about how elected officials don't want to raise utility rates because they think they're somehow screwing over the ratepayers. The utility is a business. If
Yep.
you're not covering the expenses of that business, it's going to go out of business, or it's going to, not cover the infrastructure, and you're going to. Anyway, sorry, guys,
No,
little rant there, but
you're just fine, Joe.
man.
I'm with you 100%. And
Yeah,
it took a mind shift change for council members, but luckily a lot of them are new, so they were willing to do that, and it worked out well for us. So
I just think the thing that pisses me off as someone who is right of center politically, and I don't try to advertise my political beliefs on here, but I also don't try to hide it. I try to be as authentic as I can be with the audience. I have my political beliefs, but I got to tell you, man, as someone who's on the right of the political spectrum, one thing that drives me the most insane is when you have elected officials who try to say that they are right of center politically speaking, and they want to be for conservative limited government, but yet they only want to do the sound bites and the cliches that say that they're for limited government, but they don't want to make the tough decisions.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Sorry, I just you can't have government services. The cost of goods going up 20, 30, 40, 50% over the last 4 or 5 years, and act like you can't raise rates or. I don't know. Sorry, Nathan. I don't know.
No,
Maybe I should
I
edit
think
this rant out. I don't know.
I think your city manager listeners, Joe, are just applauding.
Gosh. Well, hey, I mean, I guess we've kind of beat the intro to death a little bit here, Nathan. Why don't we talk more about this AI journey and what you've been working on? Okay, so you have this product that's called CityOrdinanceAI, and why don't you briefly tell the audience what it's about? Don't unpack it fully. Let's just briefly talk about it, because I also want to learn more about your AI journey and how you even got into wanting to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, from a 30,000 foot view, City Ordinance AI is kind of a chat GPT that pulls from city specific codes, right? So
Okay.
that residents can type in a question about their city's rules or codes, and get a non legal answer back that they can actually act on.
So they can understand it in plain English, right?
Yep, exactly. Or Spanish. We'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah, good. God bless the attorneys, right? So, what's the deal? Like, have you been curious about AI, or did you run into something just through the experience at work that said, hey, just sort of caused you to go down this path? Like, walk me through your AI journey or whatnot, or your interest in Chat GPT and AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this buddy. He's very techy. Works for Adobe as a cybersecurity analyst. Is always into the new thing on the tech side of things. And so, when AI started to get really, really big a couple years ago, he reached out and said, "Nate, you have to try this." He's probably my best friend, so I'm always like, "Okay, I'll give it a try," you know.
Right,
And I
right.
did, and this time,
What's your
unlike a
buddy's
lot of
name?
others, John Gillis.
John. If John says, "Hey, you gotta try it," you gotta try it, right, Nathan?
That's exactly right. And normally I'm like, it's not for me. But I tried this AI thing. It was Chat GPT that I was pitching, and I was like, this is so cool. You know,
Yeah.
there's use for this, and that's kind of how the journey began. As I started doing that, and I ended up becoming proficient enough that I've been asked to teach at state conferences and international conferences about AI. And I feel like wholly unqualified to do that, but I can at least say to the average person, you know, like this is how I use it and this is how you can use it. And it saved me a lot of time. So,
Well, you're light years ahead of most people, right? I mean, the AI is such a state of infancy right now that it's mind-boggling to how much change has already happened just in the 2 years that I've been talking about it. Since I had Micah Gaudet on the program, we talked about it literally 2 years ago on this podcast, and just to see what's happened over that period of time, it's just I can't even wrap my head around it. It's just insane, and in some respects, it's terrifying. I won't get into that, but I mean, it's just
uh,
I don't know what jobs are going to be, eliminated, which ones are going to be, enhanced by it. It's just a crazy time to
mhm.
see I mean, I go to visit my wife in LA and we got, driverless cars going around, with Waymo, the Google Waymo vehicles, I don't know if you guys have any of
Yeah.
those in Oklahoma City or not yet, but it's pretty wild, man. So what does City Ordinance AI do exactly? Can you walk us through that experience for the end user, which is in this case, going to be the residents? This is a public facing tool. Obviously, staff can use it as well, right? But it's just
Yep.
primarily designed. Correct. This is primarily designed for the end user, as in the citizen using the interface.
It is. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right. So, what it looks like from their perspective is they'll jump on the city website, right? And they used to have to look for the city code, and then they could do like a search tool that would pull up a section for them that they would have to read. Well,
Right.
City Ordinance AI eliminates all that. There's just a chat box that they click on the city website that will allow them to ask a question, much like a Chat GPT or a Google. I've never known how to say that, Gemini, or
Yeah. 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 Well, it used to
um,
what it was something else, right? It wasn't Bard or something like that
yeah, it used
before.
to be
Yeah. Yeah.
Bard, and that was
Yeah.
much. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I know how to say that one, but yeah, so much like that, the resident will just do that on the website, and rather than scouring the internet, or the sources that ChatGPT has, it just looks at the city code, translates their question from plain English and the code to plain English, and spits it back out to them and says, yeah, this is, to build a fence, you need to do these three things, or these are the setback requirements, and it just breaks down things into plain English for them so that they can act on it.
So I know a lot of cities have moved over the last decade or so to having their municipal code hosted by a third-party vendor like MuniCode or some other different types of vendors. The idea being that you send the ordinances to them as they're passed, and then they update it in real time. And so that way, I know that there's different plans, but generally speaking, the idea is though that the municipal code is constantly being updated in real time, and it's easily accessible not only to staff but to the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people still kind of keep their municipal code just hosted on their own website or whatnot, and it's static or what have you. How does your product work? So if I'm a city manager, say, hey, I'm interested in checking in with Nathan on this City Ordinance AI and putting it on our city website. What does the city manager and their staff have to do? What work is required of them on the back end in order to make this work?
Yeah, great question. So the answer is from the client, nothing. We, as City Ordinance AI and our staff, do all of that. So what we do on our side is we'll actually go to their website and see if they're hosted on any of those platforms you were talking about, right?
Right,
MuniCode or things
right.
like that, and we'll just scrape their code from that platform. And so whenever there's an update on MuniCode for the city of Perry, that is automatically incorporated into this City Ordinance AI bot.
At the end of the day, whether it's hosted from a third party vendor on a web link or what's hosted natively on their site or what have you, they don't have to do anything. All they have to do is tell you where it's hosted or where it's at, and you guys basically do the rest, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. And we just keep that up to date so that the residents, if a new law is passed, can search information on that new law, and it tells them what that
Okay.
means.
I haven't spent much time on AI, so I've interacted with it a little bit. I know from my conversations with Micah, who's really into the Chat GPT AI space, obviously,
Yeah,
that when it comes to these sort of interfaces, one of the major things that is really beneficial in terms of getting the most bang for the buck per se is the ability to write prompts and be able to ask the right questions to get good answers, right?
yep.
Um, what work have you guys done on the back end? Can you speak to that as far as I'm such a layman when it comes to this, Nathan, but it's like, have you been able to educate the language model to look for certain questions, or how does that work, right? Can you
Yeah,
unpack that a little bit?
yeah, for sure. So there's a couple different things you're kind of referring to, Joe, that I think I'm following. The first is the resident has to be able to ask a question in such a way that the language model can understand, right?
Right,
One way that our program does that is it'll give them an answer to the question, but then it will also give three other questions that the resident may consider asking to get a better or more detailed response, right? And they can
got you.
just click on that. It'll then give them more information that way. The other part of your question is that the language model and the person have to speak the same language, which sounds easy, but in reality, people, residents, for example, will say, "Hey, I want to build a mother-in-law shed in my backyard."
Right,
Well,
right,
the language model doesn't intuitively know what a mother-in-law shed is, right?
right, right,
It has to know, okay, they're talking about an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. And
right.
so our staff actually go in and we train the model based on how the city references that jargon in their code, right?
It's kind of funny, right? Because we kind of opened this discussion with this idea that we want to help the average person better understand the code in layman's terms. It's almost like you have to do the reverse translation and then translate it back, right? So the
Yeah.
product that you've created has to sort of understand or interpret what the end user's asking. So they have to kind of do a translation and then go through the analysis and then spit it back out in the correct terms that they're going to understand.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, attorneys are writing the city codes, right? And then
Right.
they're trying to communicate with residents who don't speak attorney, and so the chatbot, City Ordinance AI, is acting as the mediator for that conversation.
Right, 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 right. Okay. Earlier, you alluded to also that there is multi-language capabilities. I don't know if this would be on just English and Spanish, but can you speak to where you're at now in the development phase of being able to translate into multiple languages?
Yeah, absolutely. So because this product is piggybacking off of ChatGPT, any language that ChatGPT speaks, the resident can speak. So
Okay.
I only speak three languages. I speak Spanish.
Only?
Yeah, I
You
guess
only wait. Wait, you only speak three languages?
I,
Brother, I'm lucky if I speak one. What are you talking about?
I didn't say I speak them well, Joe. I just said I speak them. So I speak three languages, and I've tried all three on City Ordinance AI, which is English, Spanish, and Portuguese, and all
Okay.
three work flawlessly. So
Okay, good deal. Good deal. So, any city that has the obviously an ethnic population with some ESL, English as a second language capabilities, could get some value from this, right?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. Right now, the product, and I don't know if you have any aspirations to expand it to other forays, but right now the product is specifically niche focused on just ordinances, right? So that's all you're basically focused on is helping the end user resident of the community go on to the website and communicate with the interface, the Chat GPT AI interface, whatever you want to call it. Excuse my dumb way of describing it, but given the opportunity of communicating with that to get the answers that they need, right?
Yep.
I assume this also has a mobile functionality or is mobile responsive design.
Yeah, it does. They should be able to use mobile on that, and the only issue that I've been running into is certain browsers sometimes won't pass that robot check, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. If
But
you're a human
in
being,
theory,
right?
yeah, it works. So in theory, it
Okay.
works.
Why don't we talk a little about the how the pricing model works, because one of the things that I find fascinating about these chat GPT AI products that are literally just popping up like mushrooms out of nowhere in the private and public sector is that there is a variable cost, as I understand it, in order to you as a business owner to run the software or to provide the service to the end user, right? Like, because essentially, OpenAI, the company that created this technology, they have to charge you in order to use it, right? That's how they're making money, right?
Yep.
So, why don't you walk us through a little bit of the pricing structure, how that works? I assume, like most, if not seemingly every government product, that it's based off of population of the community or whatnot. Can you is that how you guys are working?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. And I've often thought as a city manager that when I see that, I'm like, oh, that's just the software company taking advantage of a larger budget, right?
Yeah,
And I think in a lot of ways, some of those softwares are, frankly. For us, it's because those variable costs increase because we actually are charged based on the number of questions asked.
right.
And so a population of 5,000, our assumption is that they're going to ask a lot less questions than a population of 500,000,
You would
right?
think so, logically, right?
So our annual cost right now, we have a breakdown of, for a city of 5,000 or less, we're charging $99 a month to have
Okay,
this. Where if you're a city of say 100,000, we're charging $499 a month.
got
Um,
you.
and so
And that's
it's
just because you don't know. I mean, but the thing is you don't. That's the crazy part about being a business owner and signing the front of the check, right? In this example, I kind of laugh when people criticize or talk about how easy it is for business owners, because at the end of the day, you don't know if you're going to get some monster mega user in that town of 5,000 who's just going to pound away and use a lot of credits versus
yeah,
people in the town of 100,000, they might not even use that at all. Just it also depends on how aggressive that city manager in their community is in marketing the product, right? They
yep,
want to,
yep.
if they're super aggressive about marketing this technology and this option for their citizens, you're going to get higher usage. So it's kind of funny in a sense. You want the city managers to promote the product,
Yeah.
but maybe not too much.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of adjusted that pricing over time. We started a little bit higher, and then as we've seen the city who's using this right now, which is Perry, as we've seen the number of questions they're getting, we're saying, okay, we can probably afford to lessen it. So we've actually decreased our pricing because I think it's a really great product. I
Yeah.
use it all the time personally, and I would really love for more cities to be able to utilize a tool like this so that their residents can understand their codes.
What kind of response have you been getting from your citizens, as well as, I'm curious, your governing body and also the department head level? Because the whole goal with this product, obviously, is to essentially help the citizen get access to information in a much easier, frictionless environment, while also unburdening some of the staff with some of the more mundane, routine questions that probably come in on a regular basis, and now they can redirect their energy to other better uses or purposes, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, and in terms of response, we've had everyone who's used it has been like, "This is amazing. We really like it." But then oftentimes they go back to their old ways of searching code because they just
It's
forget.
habit. Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Yep. And so
yeah.
it's going to be a mindset shift, and I think that's AI generally, right?
Yes.
How many of us still Google things and then look at the AI summary where it's like you could have just gone to Chat GPT and done that, or gone
I, I
straight to
still
Google
I
for.
still Google every day, and I know like there's probably people like Micah and stuff who are using like Perplexity and stuff, and I know a lot of people are not even using Google for search anymore. In fact, I follow some of the tech chatter and what have you, and a lot of people complain that Google search is not even as good as it used to be because of just the way the game's changing and so forth and so on. But I'm still stuck in my Google la la land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we are creatures of habit. We're human beings, and so that's one of the biggest issues with anything that has to do with technological adoption, right? Whether it's staff or citizens, is just going through that change and changing that behavior.
Mhm.
So it does take that education and takes repetition as well.
Yep.
What about your governing body? I'm curious. Have they tuned in at all and said much on it, or are they just sort of, hey, that's just Nathan doing his thing over there, the youngster with the tech, or I don't know, like what's been the vibe of your council, your governing body?
Yeah, I had one who used it the other day, and it was kind of funny to see because they don't. A lot of times, governing bodies and boards generally don't understand everything that goes into getting a product on a city website, right?
Of course.
And so they used it and they're just like, oh, yeah, it was really cool. I was like, did you use that tool? I'm all excited about it. They're like, yeah. I think in their mind, like all cities have this tool. And it's like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
literally like the only city in the
yeah,
nation
yeah,
who has this tool.
yeah, yeah. It's
So they
funny.
liked it. But again, they need to understand that they need to use it more often.
So Nathan, I want to move this conversation in a little bit more to a macro sense, but before we do that, so what's the best way for customers or prospective city customers, cities, city managers, local governments to get more information? Is it just for them to go to CityOrdinance.ai?
Yeah. So that's a good approach for them. They can actually try Perry's version on that website for
Okay.
free, so they can see what it would look like in their municipality. And they're welcome to reach out to me, Joe. I'm happy to provide my LinkedIn or my email or even my cell phone.
I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, as well as the link to the Perry homepage, as well as to the CityOrdinance.ai, so that the listeners can find you. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm comfortable enough with your listeners. I think city managers generally are boosters. They want to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't have them reach out on the website. They're welcome to go to the website, but there's like contact information there.
Yeah, yeah,
They can
yeah,
just LinkedIn message me, man. Like I'm happy to
yeah,
talk to them. So
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Not for sure, 100%. I am curious. So, like, as we kind of, I want to tackle this issue because I opened the episode a little bit talking about how I have a desire to showcase city managers and those in government who have a side hustle or whatnot. I'm really fascinated by the entrepreneurial mindset, and I'm kind of curious to learn more about you in that regard, Nathan. Are you naturally sort of inclined or predisposed to an entrepreneurial type spirit, or did you sort of stumble into this because of your buddy John and he turned you on to it? Or can you walk me through that?
yeah, I think all of my side gigs growing up have been blue collar,
You're right.
paving stone, like doing paver projects for people or tree limb cut downs or things like that. But as far as like being an entrepreneur, I never really saw myself as that.
Okay.
Uh, Even now, to a certain extent, I'm like, yeah, I would love to get this going, but at the same time, like I really love my career, and I see
Right.
this kind of as an opportunity just to add to that career because it's a cool tool for local gov people to use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I totally get that, and I just find it fascinating because I think it's something I really wrestle with quite a bit in terms of wanting to explore in more detail for myself, as well as even possibly for creating some AI products for city managers and AAME members and things of that sort of nature. But I've been so resolute. I'm so guilty of like this is the thing I suffer from like a lot of like entrepreneurs or wannapreneurs or whatnot is like the is this the shiny the shiny toy syndrome where it's like you get distracted by this and you go over here and you're distracted by that. But I just find it fascinating what you can do with this technology, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to become even more of a useful product for city managers and local government, and where is that going? Because I think there's a lot of companies who have been serving the local government space, especially
Mm.
when we're talking about consultants, right? I just saw somebody on LinkedIn asking for things like a strategic plan for their city, right? Looking for a consultant for a strategic plan. Well, some of the things that you can do with like Chat GPT AI, with like the deep work or deep search, and I mean, you can do such intense stuff with this technology. I'm wondering what impact it's going to have on a lot of these different areas of local government in terms of vendors and consultants. It's really, I mean, it's the wild wild west right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Our city attorney is like 75 years old, super old guy, but you really like you would never guess looking at him. He's been in this industry forever and works really hard.
Yeah,
But I was showing him Chat GPT the other day, and he just goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm old." Because
yeah.
he's like, "There's not going to be attorneys," and I disagree with that.
No, I think, well, yes and no, but I think a lot of these attorneys are going to get decimated to a large extent. I mean, it's oh man, we could riff on this for a long time because I have a buddy of mine whose daughter is literally just getting ready to go into law school, and they've actually had some extensive conversations in their family about, hey, is this the right career path? We're not sure. It helps that she got a scholarship, so she's not going to be sitting on a 200K of a law school tuition to worry about. But I
yeah,
mean, I don't even know what you do. I have a kid who's at the Naval Academy. We have a lot of our peers who have children who are either in college or just getting ready to go into college, and we're in a state of the landscape right now where you could start college today, and by the time you graduate, the whole world has changed from an economic standpoint, and whether or not you even got the. I mean, you're going to school to learn something that might not even exist. I don't know, man. It's just it's wild right now.
It is wild, but I think fundamentally you're always going to have people who understand the background of does this answer that this machine is giving me make sense, right?
100%,
And
100%,
so
right?
I think you're still going to have attorneys, just like you still have mathematicians, even though we have calculators. You
Yeah, good point.
type in 2 + 2, you still have to know, like, yeah, that means it's going to be 4, and I know why, right?
That's a great
Um,
point. Yeah.
and so I think you'll probably have less of these white collar jobs, and I think we're seeing that now.
Yes.
And I think you're going to have a shift in how they do their work, because they're going to be able to tell ChatGPT, write me up this contract,
Yeah.
between these two parties. And rather than them having to just do it from scratch or from a template they have, they're going to just have to check it, right?
Yeah. Hundred
But you're
percent.
always going to have those people to check it, I think, personally.
Yeah, they're true. I will tell you this though. I feel pretty safe if I'm a city manager that AI is not taking my job anytime soon. So
Yeah.
I think if you're in the city manager seat, I think you'll be feeling pretty good because I don't think that job's going away anytime soon. So, but hey, Nathan, it's been really great having you on the show. You are the owner of CityOrdinanceAI. It is a tool that allows citizens to access the municipal code and get answers in a very easy, simplistic way so they can understand it in layman's terms. And if you are interested in purchasing this product and using it in your locality, please reach out to Nathan Reed. I will have his contact information in my show notes and links to the website. So thank you very much, Nathan.
Thanks, Joe. It's been great being on here.
Absolute, bud. Thank you very much. I'm Joe Turner. This is the City Manager Unfiltered Podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a rating and review on your platform of choice. And if you've not subscribed already, please hit that follow button on your platform of choice. Thank you very much. Catch you next week.